All right, so we're diving into some really interesting stuff today. SMM panels, have you heard of these?
Yeah, they're getting a lot of buzz, right?
Definitely. So we've got this guide called SMM Panels, Your Guide to Social Media Growth. And let me tell you, it's got some pretty eye-opening stuff.
It's wild, right? And you know what's really interesting?
What's that?
It doesn't just tell you how to use these panels. It even talks about how to set up your own SMM panel business.
Whoa, really? So you could actually be the one on the other side providing these services?
Exactly.
That's crazy. But okay, let's back up a sec. For anyone who's hearing about this for the first time, what exactly are these MM panels?
Okay, so imagine this. You're launching something new, right?
Okay, got it.
A new project, a new whatever. And you need to make a splash on social media. Fast.
Yeah, that's always the challenge.
That's where SMM panels come in. They're like these online hubs, one-stop shops for all those likes, followers, views, those things everyone seems to be after.
So it's like a shortcut to social media success.
Kind of, yeah. Like, think about it. Time is precious, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
These panels, they save you so much time and effort. All those hours you'd normally spend trying to grow organically, you can use that time for other stuff, like creating awesome content.
Okay, so it's about working smarter, not harder. I can definitely get behind that. But here's the thing I'm wondering. Is this real engagement we're talking about, or is it all just like smoke and mirrors?
That's the million-dollar question. It's where things get interesting, because not all SMM panels are created equal.
Oh, I see.
Some, yeah, they're all about fast, cheap results, but that usually means you're getting bots and fake accounts, which,
Not exactly ideal.
right. But then there are others that specialize in delivering higher quality engagement. Real people, real interactions. But of course, that usually comes with a higher price tag.
Makes sense. You get what you pay for. But okay, let's say I'm convinced. I want to explore these SMM panels. Where do I even begin? There must be tons of them out there.
Oh, there are a whole bunch. And the guide we're looking at, it does a great job of breaking down how to choose the right one. First things first, you got to figure out what you need.
All right, so what kind of things should I be thinking about?
Well, like, do you need a panel that specializes in a specific platform, like just Instagram or just YouTube?
Got it.
Or do you need something more all-encompassing, something that covers all your bases?
Right, right. And what about like speed versus quality? Is it better to see a sudden spike in followers, or is it more effective to have it happen gradually, like organically?
Yeah, that's another important consideration. Do you want the quick boost or the slow and steady approach? And then there's pricing, too. Different panels have different models. Some are subscriptions, some are pay-as-you-go. Got to find what works for your budget.
This is starting to feel like online shopping, but for social media influence.
Haha, yeah, kind of.
So I'm guessing customer reviews are pretty important here, right?
Oh, absolutely. Just like you'd check reviews before booking a hotel or buying anything online, you want to see what other users are saying about this SMM panel. Are they reliable? Do they deliver what they promise?
Right, you don't want to get scammed or anything, so a little research goes a long way. Now, I got to ask about something you mentioned earlier, the part about creating your own SMM panel. That just sounds intense.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other ball game. Definitely takes a certain level of tech savvy to pull that off. You're basically building a platform, right? You've got to connect buyers and sellers, manage all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Like what kind of stuff? Give us a peek behind a curtain. What does it actually take to run one of these operations?
Well, for starters, you've got to know about APIs, how to manage servers, how to handle payment gateways, and then there's all the data, tons of data. User activity, you need to know about databases, security protocols.
So this is not for the casual user who just wants a few more likes on their latest post. You've got to be a bit of a tech whiz to handle this, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. But, for the right person, someone with the skills and the entrepreneurial drive, it could be a pretty sweet gig.
Okay, so big takeaway here is SMM panels can be powerful tools, for sure. But choosing the right one, using it wisely, that takes some real thought.
Exactly. It's not just a matter of clicking a button and watching the followers pour in. There's a lot more to it than that.
And it sounds like there are some potential downsides to be aware of, too.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a whole other side to this that we need to explore. The ethical considerations, the potential risks. You don't want to jump into this blindly.
All right, so let's dive into that next. What are the things people need to watch out for? What are the potential consequences of using these panels?
We'll get into all that after the break, so stay tuned. So yeah, where were we? Oh, right, the downsides. Using SMM panels isn't all sunshine and roses.
Right, because it seems almost too good to be true. So let's get into it. What are some of the things that could go wrong? What should people be cautious about?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is the platforms themselves, right? Like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Yeah, they're not exactly fans of people gaming the system, are they?
Exactly. They're constantly updating those algorithms to try and weed out the fakers. Anyone trying to inflate their numbers artificially. And if they catch you, well,
What happens then?
It depends, really. Sometimes it's just a slap on the wrist, like a temporary suspension. But in some cases, they can ban you completely. Poof, you're gone.
Yikes. Okay, so that's a risk. Definitely not worth losing your whole account over a few extra followers.
Right. And even if you don't get caught, there's the authenticity issue. I mean, if most of your followers are just bots or fake accounts, anyone who looks closely is going to figure that out.
Yeah, that would be pretty embarrassing. And it wouldn't exactly build trust with your audience, would it?
Nope, not at all. In fact, it could really hurt your credibility. People are savvy, you know? They can tell when something's not quite right.
So it's like even if you manage to trick the algorithms, you're not really fooling anyone.
Pretty much. And it kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? I mean, what's the point in having a huge following if none of them are actually engaged with what you're doing?
Exactly. You could have thousands of followers, but if they're not real people who are genuinely interested in your content, it's all just a big facade.
It's a hollow victory for sure. Real engagement that comes from creating great content, connecting with your audience on a real level, building relationships over time. That's what really matters.
Okay, so we've talked about the risks, the ethical side of things. Now I'm curious about the practical side. Let's say someone decides to give these SMM panels a try. How does it actually work? What's the process like?
It's surprisingly simple, actually. Think of it like, online shopping.
Okay, I can picture that.
But instead of buying clothes or gadgets, you're buying social media services. You browse through the options, pick what you want, add it to your cart, and check out. Easy peasy.
So let's say I want to boost the views on my latest YouTube video. How would I do that?
Okay, so you log into your SMM panel, right? Then you'd head over to the YouTube Views section, paste in the link to your video, choose how many views you want, and maybe collect some other options, like how fast you want them to come in or what kind of audience you're targeting.
And then what? Just sit back and watch the numbers go up.
Most panels have a dashboard where you can track everything, see how many views you've gotten, how quickly they're coming in, all that good stuff.
Cool. So you're always in the loop. What about payment? How does that usually work?
Most of the times you have to add funds to your account before you can place an order. Makes things smoother and more secure. And they usually have a bunch of different payment options, credit cards, crypto, whatever works for you.
Convenient. But what happens if something goes wrong? Like, what if I pay for views, but they don't show up, or the quality is bad?
That's where the refund and refill policies come in. Before you buy anything, always check those policies. A good SMM panel will have clear rules about that kind of stuff to protect both the buyer and the seller.
Smart. Makes sense. So it's just like buying anything else online, really. You want to know what your options are if something goes wrong. And what about customer support? Is that usually available?
Oh yeah, most panels have some kind of customer support. Email, support tickets, sometimes even live chat.
So if you run into a problem, you can usually get help. Good to know. Now, you mentioned before that someone could actually create their own S&M panel. Can we circle back to that? It sounds pretty wild. It's definitely a next level thing, not for everyone, obviously. But if you have the tech skills and the drive, it can be a pretty profitable business. So for someone who's thinking about going down that road, what are some of the key things they'd need to consider?
Well, first off, you have to decide what kind of panel you want to create. Are you going to focus on one specific platform or offer a bunch of different services? And you'd need to find reliable providers for those services. You're essentially reselling them, right? So finding trustworthy suppliers is crucial. Otherwise, your reputation's going to take a hit.
And then there's the technical side of it, right? Setting up the website, managing the servers, dealing with payments. That's a lot of technical stuff to handle.
Yeah, it can be pretty intense. But the good news is there's software out there that can be easier. SMM panel software solutions, they basically give you the framework you need to run your panel. Things like user management, order processing, analytics tracking.
So it's like instead of building a house from scratch, you're buying a prefab one.
Exactly. Saves a ton of time and hassle. But even with those platforms, you still need to know a bit about web development and server management to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Makes sense. And I'm guessing marketing is a big part of it too, right? You've got to get the word out about your panel and attract customers.
Oh, absolutely. You need to build a brand, create marketing materials, engage with potential customers. It's a whole other side of the business.
So it's like running a business within a business, really. You're not just selling social media services. You're selling access to a platform that provides those services.
That's a great way to put it. It's definitely multifaceted. It takes a diverse skill set to pull it off successfully. But for the right person, it can be really rewarding.
It's amazing how this whole industry has evolved, so many different layers and opportunities. But before we get too lost in the business side of things, let's come back to the user experience. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about using an SMM panel for the first time?
The number one thing is to do your research. Choose your panel carefully. Don't just jump into the first one you see.
Right, like we talked about earlier. Check the reviews, compare pricing, make sure they have decent customer support.
Exactly. And beyond that, I'd say set realistic expectations. Understand that SMM panels, they're just one part of the equation, a tool in your toolbox. They can help you, but they shouldn't be your only focus.
So it's like don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Focus on the fundamentals, creating great content, engaging with your audience, Building genuine relationships. That's the real secret sauce.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't just buy your way to a successful social media presence, right? You've got to put in the work.
You got it. SMM panels can amplify your efforts, for sure, but they can't replace the hard work, the dedication, the real stuff that goes into building a loyal following.
It's about finding that balance, using these tools strategically to help you along the way, but not becoming totally reliant on them.
Right. And the thing is, social media is always changing, right? What works today might not work tomorrow. You got to be adaptable, willing to adjust your strategies as you go.
And that's why it's so important to stay informed, to keep learning and growing, which is what we're doing here today, right? Diving deep into this whole world of SMM panels.
Exactly. Knowledge is power. The more you understand how these tools work, the better decisions you can make about whether or not to use them and how to use them effectively.
I gotta say, this has been a really eye-opening conversation. I feel like I've learned a ton. What would you say is the biggest takeaway you want listeners to walk away with today?
That's a good question. I guess the most important thing to remember is that SMM panels, they're just one tool among many. They could be helpful, but they're not some kind of magic solution. Real success on social media, that comes from a combination of things. Creating quality content, engaging with your audience authentically, building those relationships over time.
It's about playing the long game, building a brand that people trust and want to be a part of, not just chasing vanity metrics.
You nailed it. And that takes time, effort, a genuine commitment to connecting with the people you want to reach.
So well said. Well, this has been a whirlwind of a deep dive. I hope everyone listening found it as informative and interesting as I did.
It's been a pleasure joining you today. Really enjoyed this conversation.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of SMM panels. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those social media feeds buzzing.